Welcome back. This is episode 66 of An Eternal Soul in a Physical World. And I welcome you back to our discussion on the power of our amazing, amazing heart. In the last three podcasts, we've been talking about the potential of when we activate our heart center, how it changes the body's chemical composition, to produce kind of anti-aging and to boost our immune system, to bring us vitality and energy. It connects us with a higher brain function. Our intuition opens up. And even more than that, when we open up our heart, we connect to the unified field of consciousness, which is the very fabric, that unites this whole one thing that we are. We connect to that larger consciousness through our hearts. Our hearts is where we make that connection. And so there's this huge potential when we start to activate the heart. And in fact, until we activate the heart, we are kind of remaining stuck in our lower three chakras and kind of going around and around and around on autopilot in this confined, personal, limited reality. When we start to open the heart, whole other realities start to emerge. And just recently, I was having a chat with my guides, one guide in particular that I talk to at the moment. And it was kind of late at night and I was falling asleep, ish at the time. I was near to when I fell asleep. So I can't really recall the whole conversation, to be honest. But she was starting to talk about how as we awaken and activate our heart center, we are evolving into a whole new species. So it's like the next, pathway or the next step in our evolutionary process. And Eckhart Tolle mentions this kind of in his own way in A New Earth. He talks about how the human species is evolving into the next stage of its evolution. And part of that is just being able to not think for a while, to just be. And so I want to talk a bit more about this today, about the heart's potential to bring us into this next phase of our development and kind of what I mean by that. Because the difference between living up in the head and living a heart-centered reality is very, very different. So if you just take that into consideration to begin with, if I just live in my head and I'm totally cut off from feeling emanations of love, caring, empathy, and gratitude, if I'm up in my head and I'm analyzing and I'm feeling separate from everything, I'm trying to control everything, that's a very different reality than being in the heart and feeling connected to everything, feeling love and caring, and the decisions that I would make from this reality, from this state of being, state of consciousness, than from the head. Very, very different. But in actuality, the two work together. The heart and the brain do work together, but the head on its own, not helpful. Is it? Not really. It's helpful when you want to work out a math problem. Not that helpful when you want to make a life decision. So the head divides. That's its very nature. The heart unites. So in my kind of digging around on the internet this past week, I came across this cool quote that I wanted to share with you. It's from an author called Thomas Berry, and he wrote, "The future can only exist when we understand the universe as composed of subjects to be communed with, not objects to be exploited." So think about that. When we can understand the universe as composed of subjects to be communed with, not objects to be exploited. And in that quote kind of sums up the difference between the head and the heart. The head is saying, I'm seeing everything as as a separate thing. I'm seeing it, I'm separate from it, therefore I need to exploit it. Whereas the heart says, I'm with everything, I'm communing with everything, I'm one with everything, therefore I know it. And, it's like that coconut analogy that I used a couple of podcasts ago. If we want to know what's inside the coconut, we don't stand outside of it with our mind and like try and work it out from being separate from the coconut. If we come into our heart, commune with the coconut, become one with the coconut, because we do meet in the heart center. I and the coconut become one thing through the heart. I can know the coconut through my heart. I can understand it more deeply. I can find out way more about it from my heart than I can through using my head and through looking at it from the outside. And I think this is the big difference and the big shift that we're going to make in our scientific discoveries, that when we start to approach science from an expanded state of consciousness, that's when we're going to start to understand all the missing links, all the things we couldn't previously put together before. When we switch our consciousness first and then start to unravel it or go into whatever it is that we're trying to understand, then we will gain greater wisdom, knowledge, and teachings will kind of come to us as we expand our consciousness first. And we do that through opening our heart. That's one way, the main way of opening up our consciousness to the larger field consciousness. Just think of it like this. Underneath the heart, if we're just operating in our lower three chakras, we're only going to be experiencing our own personal stuff, and that is habitual, it's programmed, it's all kind of stuff from the past that goes around and around on autopilot, and we'll just keep doing that. The heart breaks that cycle and opens us up to a whole new, fresh, spontaneous way of being that is unified with the larger being that we are. So I wanted to look into Ra's teachings about the heart a little bit, because I just started to remember, Ra talks a lot about the heart and about the power of the heart and love and all that stuff. And if you don't know who Ra is, if you haven't listened to those previous podcasts where I mentioned Ra, Ra is a sixth dimensional collective consciousness that channeled through a woman called Carla Ruckart. And that conversation between the questioner and Ra is a book called The Law of One. And you can find it all online. If you Google Law of One, all the material is right there. And it's very, very interesting because it's an extremely precise, channeled, channeled stuff, channeled content. The details that come out of this entity Ra is just amazing. The knowledge, the information, the wisdom, that it's really, really, it's kind of really up there and the best channeled stuff you can find at the moment. And it was channeled in 1980 or the 1980s, so it's been around the block, but that kind of stuff never expires, because it's about how the universe was created and how it all came together and what it all is and what we are and how we're evolving, what we're evolving to, and all the different details around that kind of stuff doesn't really have an expiry date. So it's a fascinating book to study if you're really interested in consciousness and evolution and that kind of thing. So I came across this blog from a guy called Doug Esse. And he had a little statement in there which I really liked. And these aren't the exact words, but I'll put the link to the blog in the description. You can check it out for yourself. So he was saying that basically if you're on a positive path, so he was talking about Ra's material, he was kind of talking about the teachings of Ra. And he was saying that according to Ra, if you're on a positive path, then you understand the symbiotic relationality of everything. And you operate with full knowingness of that. So you understand your unity, basically, and you operate with the full knowingness and awareness of the absolute symbiotic relationality of everything. That's kind of what we are evolving into, to really live from that place. So the understanding that everything is in symbiotic relationship to each other, just like all the cells in my body are in some symbiotic relationship to make up this one body. We are all cells, making up this one body that is the one. And when you're on a positive path of evolution, you really operate within the knowingness of that, along the lines of the truth of that. And we've been talking a lot about gratitude, haven't we? And how gratitude is like this freaking amazing, powerful tool that actually activates the heart in such a way that we can enter into these amazing heart powers that we can have once that heart is open and activated. We can start to step into this new way of being through the open heart. Gratitude opens that door for us when we practice it. And it's funny because when you're like, the one way of using gratitude is noticing the symbiotic relationship with everything. For example, like if you are practicing gratitude toward something that you're eating, say I'm eating a dinner that my partner just made. I'm saying I'm so grateful for him for making this food. Thank you, that you made this food. Thank you for putting it together for me. Thank you for all of the elements that make up this food on my plate, for the rice, for the vegetables, for the meat, for the, and thinking about where all of those things came from. And then all of the people that had to do something there to harvest whatever it was, to wash it, to clean it, to prepare it, to put it in a shop, and all the people in the shop that had to handle it, promote it, sell it, package it, or, whatever, the multitude of different people and that were involved with bringing this food to your table in this very moment is huge, absolutely enormous. And you could keep working it back to kind of include everything and everyone, because you could think about all those people's families. And if this hadn't happened, they wouldn't have got that job, and that wouldn't, everything is linked. And so when you have gratitude for your food, you're really connecting into the symbiotic relationality that underpins this whole united fabric of creation, fabric of being that we are. So you're using your heart to connect into the truth of our interconnectedness, of our unity. And as such, you're experiencing yourself as an expanded being. So let's not overlook gratitude anymore, because I know I was guilty of that, as I admitted earlier. Oh yeah, gratitude, yeah, whatever. We've all heard it, yeah, everyone talks about gratitude, blah, blah, blah. No. It is you freaking mental in what it is doing energetically for us and physically. It's the doorway, man. It's absolutely amazing in what it is activating for us. So one thing that I have mentioned in these podcasts is how we are switching from third density being into fourth density. If you'd like to see the rest of this video or listen to it in podcast form, then please go to my Patreon and sign up to receive all of the amazing, amazing podcasts and meditations that are available for you there. There's also a monthly Zoom spiritual development group that you get as part of that. I'd love to see you in there and support you with sticking to your own personal growth, your own spiritual development. Much love.